Hi and welcome to Teaching Period 1 of 2015. Really excited to be here to be your unit coordinator in ELA, and really looking forward to these range of topics. I've probably mentioned on the forum, I think, that this was one of my favourite units in my degree, and I think it's really great when you get your head around these topics, because they apply to so much in life, to your personal finances, to your work, to so many different areas. And I think this is reflected by the fact that we do have people working in a whole range of fields. We've got people in the construction industry, finance, law, universities, ports, in other industries, and of course there are those who are studying full time and looking to get into a range of these types of jobs when they finish. So look, it's fantastic to see that diversity, and I think it brings some great perspectives. Now, this is my first VOD, right? Video on demand. So in this VOD, I'm going to raise a couple of questions that have been asked in the discussions. The discussions have gone off to a flyer. There's some fantastic discussion there, and I'm going to just comment on some of those questions. But I'm also going to mention there that the solutions. So some of you have asked about the solutions. The solutions to the questions and problems in the e-text are now all posted up for the whole unit into Blackboard. So you'll see that e-text solutions section. Jump in there and you can access any of those solutions. The solutions for the additional questions in the learning materials, I'll be posting them up each week. So there was a bit of a problem with the link for this week's one that I've just posted up, but I've now fixed that, so thank you for bringing that to my attention, guys, and that should now work, so you can look at those additional questions, like the one additional question 3 that Chris has raised, and I'll talk about that one in a second, and you can see what the answers are. So that's great. Great way to learn is if you can try some of these questions, and then you can actually record your answers, go back, check the solutions, and then fix your thinking wherever it's slightly misaligned, I guess. So that's what I would definitely recommend. Now, one other thing I'll just mention there is each week I'll post up an intro as well at the start of the week, and then obviously the VOD will go at the end of the week, and that intro I'll cover off on any sort of details that you need to remember, assessments coming up, or particular aspects of the learning materials, those sorts of things. So make sure you jump online and have a read of that at the start of the week, and then if you're interested in looking at my ugly mug and listening to some of the comments I have to make, then jump onto the VOD at the end of the week. But first of all, most important piece of advice for this week: these are Nutella filled donuts, and they're delicious. Right, absolutely chock full of Nutella in there. Now, if you're in Melbourne, go down to Daniel's Bakery in Hoppers Crossing, because that's where you can get these. They are an experience that will change your life. I'm not affiliated with that bakery in any way, by the way. I just discovered them, and yeah, awesome. If you like chocolate, they're awesome. So there you go. You can log off now and you can just go and study, alright, because the rest I'm just going to be talking about uni, alright? So, no, don't do that. Okay, stay with me, alright. Now, let me have a look at these questions, alright. So I'm just going to talk about some of the questions that were raised in the discussions from both groups 1 and 3 from financial management. So you'll be able to pick up a bit of what the other group's talking about, and you'll probably have similar thoughts. Now, Mohammed, so you've talked about there's decisions around investment, finance and dividends for a financial manager. What other decisions are there? Well, finance is one of those things that is very, very far-reaching. So a finance manager, or a CFO as we sometimes call them, or some places might call it a business manager, is the most senior finance person in our organisation. They can be very broad, so you've got to bear in mind that you've talked about investment and dividends. Now, there's also a management accounting side, and obviously the financial accounting side, in addition to the cash management. So that investment and dividends could be, I guess, largely managing the cash, whereas there's also a lot of reporting, and both external and internal. So management accounting is, as many of you know, the internal reporting, and financial accounting is the external reporting. And then there's payments and there's receipts, so that the accounts payable, accounts receivable, they're all quite important functions, and something the financial manager would typically be responsible for. So it can be quite diverse. Now, I'm going to talk about another thing there when we talk about the goal of financial managers as well. So what is shareholder wealth? You've also asked that, Mohammed. So Brad and Kerry, you've got it. In one, the market value of the firm's equity, and of course that's where we're talking about a publicly listed company. Shareholder wealth is about increasing the value of shares and paying dividends. They're the two forms of wealth that a publicly listed company owner, which is the shareholder, can actually obtain from owning those shares. Now, if it's not a publicly listed company, shareholder wealth is really about profit. Now, how does that work? Well, profit is not paid to shareholders. Correct. Only dividends are paid to shareholders, and that might be a portion of the profit. You could pay the whole of the profit out in dividends if you wanted to, but the profit is still considered shareholder wealth, because any that's not paid out in dividends is reinvested into the company, and then that reinvestment produces more wealth. So it's really a component of wealth for the shareholder anyway, and so it's really that growing that revenue stream by reinvesting and by paying dividends is what increases wealth for the shareholder. Now, Kerry, you've gone on to say, right, what is the goal of a financial manager? Now, that is a very big question, and that actually does depend a little bit on the organisation. So if you're running a for-profit business, then it's to maximise shareholder wealth. That's the goal of the CEO as well, but the financial managers has a key role in that, because they are the gatekeeper of information about the finances of the company. Now, you might find sometimes that the not-for-profit sector has slightly different goals. So that might be to maximise the return to the particular group of people that benefit from that non-profit organisation. It might be to maximise the return for fundraising and that sort of activity. Then there's government. Okay, so we're not looking at maximising shareholder wealth in government, we're looking at maximising the public benefit. And a finance manager will look at that from the financial point of view, and they'll look at how well budgets are being utilised and being met, and they will look at the financial accounting function of preparing financial statements and making sure that information is correct for the public to see and understand how their rates or their taxes are at work. And it can even be more diverse. So, for example, the finance manager at my work at Wyndham City Council is currently taking on a special project around rate capping, and I'm probably going to have a bit of involvement in that project, because rate capping is going to have a significant impact on council's revenues, and for a very fast growing council like Wyndham City Council in Melbourne, it's very difficult to constrain spending, because as that council area grows, there's more infrastructure required, there's more services required, and you've got to be very careful about being innovative in how you deliver that expansion. Otherwise, costs can go through the roof. So that whole idea of actually having a hard cap on rates is something that could cause problems the way that council is run. Anthea, you've mentioned the strategic side of finance, and that's an interest for you in this unit. And look, I agree. There is a very interesting side of finance that is about the overall strategy, and it comes back to some of those goals of a financial manager. And it's very important to realise that different organisations will have different strategies and different goals, which will all be underpinning the efficiency and effectiveness of the use of the finances of the firm, or the organisation, I should say, of any kind. Now, Corey, you've raised additional question 3, and you have got the answer spot on. 2,173.91 cents is the net present value. So that's the present value of the the incomes minus the present value of the costs gives you the net present value, and so yes, it's an internal rate of return of 40%, and the market rate is 15%. So basically what we're saying here is at this level of risk, the risk of this project is calculated, and we're saying that 15% is the level where we can obtain, at this risk level, we can obtain 15% return from investing this money elsewhere in the market. So it's not necessarily saying that there's projects out there paying us 15%, but what it's saying is there's an assumption here that across the board we can invest our money at 15% if we're willing to take this level of risk. But this project's going to pay us 40%. So clearly, at this level of risk, this project is a good investment because we're making 40% versus 15%, which is what we would generally expect this level of risk to equate to. So it's very important to take into account risk, and like you're saying there, your own savings account might only be earning 2.5%, but it's a low risk account. Like a cash savings account is very low risk, virtually zero. So we wouldn't expect to get much of a return on that. Whereas in business, there are risks. There are significant risks that can result in insolvency, which means you lose your money. So typically, so that's where we would find that an investor would expect a higher rate of return, around 15%. In order to be comfortable taking on that risk of losing their money. So, Leanne, you've answered it perfectly. Positive MPV is a good investment. Natalia, again, perfect. The principle of it is, and this is, I should say the principles are correct, because internal rate of return higher than market rate means that it's a good investment. Now, that's the principles of it. There are a few other considerations that you would take into account when you're looking at these projects, not just purely looking at the numbers, or these numbers. We'll explore those a little bit as we get down the track. So just to keep you hooked, I'm just going to throw that one out there. So that's the questions we've had. If you've asked other questions there, forgive me if I've missed them, but feel free to definitely keep posting comments in this week's forum. I'll be looking throughout the history of the forums to check your questions and answers, and if there's anything that I need to respond to, but also have a look at the intro intro post that I'll put up shortly for this coming week's learning material, and get stuck into that. Try not to get too far behind as the semester goes on, and you won't feel overwhelmed. You'll be able to really enjoy the content then. So signing out for this week, this is Richard, and hope you've had a good weekend. All the best for the week ahead. Cheers.